Welcome to Dear Romance Writer, where three writers who always deliver happily ever afters offer questionable advice for all of your relationship, work, and life problems. I'm Roan Parrish.
I'm Zio Axelrod.
And I'm Avery Flynn, and I am super excited that we have the fabulous Lexi Blake, who also makes the perfect bullseye for Tootsie Rolls if you ever, have some extras.
Revenge is coming, girl.
Lexi, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and some of your fabulous books, and especially what you've got out or coming up.
I'm Lexi Blake. I write contemporary and suspense and a little bit of urban fantasy. I kind of go all over the place. I've been publishing since 2012. My latest book is called The Man from Sanctum. It's part of Masters of Mercenaries, which is probably my best known series.
Nice.
They're very awesome. Highly recommend.
So good.
Highly recommend. All right. Well, before we, do a little christening by fire here with our letter on Lexi, we got to talk about our week. What's been going on with you guys? Giant congratulations to Zio and everybody else with the Nightingale anthology,
Yes.
which raised a good amount of money to help support folks in Ukraine, and also just hit the top 10 on the USA Today list. So yay.
Yeah, thank you everybody who bought it, who recommended it, who shared it and reviewed it. We really appreciate it. It's going to help a lot of people. I'm so excited about that.
So what else did you do besides, be awesome?
I'm on like triple deadline, so that's pretty much all I know right now. But my father's 80th birthday was on Tuesday. And so we had like a little thing for him on Sunday because, midweek, we took him out to dinner or lunch, I guess. And it was really cool. He got to hang out with everyone, which we don't get to do much because we still don't get together really, so we were actually in a restaurant, but it was in like a private area, so it was just us, but it was cool to like see everyone and be together for a few hours. But he had a blast. And then it was funny because I sent him flowers on Tuesday and he was like, I don't think I've ever gotten flowers before. I'm like, really? Aww. Like, you've never gotten flowers? Yeah, he was like, is that okay? I'm like, Dad, it's flowers, like, calm down. They're universal. But yeah, so that was fun. He looks 50 and acts 25.
Happy birthday, Zio's dad, if you're listening. Oh man. Well, for us, we haven't been doing a whole lot, also on deadline, per usual, but let's see. This airs after Easter, but we're recording right before Easter, and we are leaving to go up to New Jersey for Easter. So that'll be fun. I will eat so incredibly well. There is nothing like marrying into an Italian family. There just really is not. The food is so delicious. So delicious. So yes. So nice. I will be rolling back home happy and full of cannoli. So yeah.
That sounds great. I haven't done too terribly much this week, but I think last time we spoke, I told everyone that I was about to start reading one of the books that has been really anticipated for me, called How High We Go in the Dark. And so I read it this week, and holy shit, it completely destroyed me. Like, I finished it this morning, and I just had a video chat with this author, Abby, who's lovely and had bid on my manuscript critique for the Romancing the Vote. And I finished the book like an hour before we talked. And right before getting on the call, I was like, oh, I need to put on so much eyeshadow that it's not clear that I've just spent like 20 minutes sobbing over
it was like a heaving crying book.
It was quite extraordinary. And it's a really sad book that does have to do with a pandemic, although not the pandemic. So I definitely know that for some folks it's not the right moment. Although interestingly, the author began the book in 2011, so it was like has nothing to do with the current plague, although it is about a plague. Anyway, I recommend it so highly. Not only was it like so emotional, it's really a book about death, but it's not dark. It's a book about how like death is the guarantee of life. And so when we read books about death and plague, like it's not that we don't know we're going to die. Like every single one of us, all of us know that we are going to die, but we choose life in the interim anyway. We choose to love, we choose to take risks. And in this book, it's like death is happening sooner, and people know that they're going to die, but it really meditates on like, what are the things that we do to resist death while we're alive. So it was like, also, it was just incredibly beautiful. And yeah, it really got me. And that's kind of what that book is what I've been spending my week with this week. And frankly, I'm glad I finished it because I can't just keep crying all the time. But it was really good.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay,
theme
so
this
don't
week.
read it in public, basically.
Maybe not.
Probably not. No.
That's a theme this week because I just finished Someday Maybe by Onyi Nwabineli, which is coming out in October. And it also deals with death and loss and grief, and also like family strife in a way that I can't really go into because I don't want to spoil it, but oh my gosh. But she's Nigerian British. So it has all this like wonderful like Nigerian family dynamics, and it's just amazing. But it's a debut, so and the prose is just gorgeous. I can't wait for her to, and if you get a chance to find the cover is just stunning. It's just gorgeous. But yeah, that theme, I think people, like you said, sometimes it's not the right moment for a book about death and grief, and like especially right now for a lot of people it may not be, but if you can open yourself up to it, it's like so beautifully cathartic to read them. Sometimes, get a good cry in, or just sort of like feel seen.
Totally agree. And I have not really been someone who found myself like made super emotional by the pandemic in and of itself. Obviously, like there have been deaths and there have been things that are specifically difficult, but I know a lot of people have like dealt with this and been upset about this, and I really haven't. For me, I'm just like a push through until the end, and then like eventually my shit catches up with me 10 years later when I don't know what it is anymore, and then I like inflict it on other people. So this was nice to like short circuit and get some catharsis. Anyway, highly recommend.
This is good.
Nice.
All right, Lexi, how about you? How's your week been? Have you read anything that made you cry? I'm going through the Bridgertons, so no crying for me.
Hey, see, y'all are all like very intellectual. All I did this week was like I
We fooled her.
I like binge watched Abbott Elementary. And
Oh, I love that
I
show.
love that show.
I haven't watched the finale yet. The season finale was last night, right?
Yes, and it was so good.
Okay, I haven't watched it
All
yet.
right, I haven't watched any of season 2 yet.
It's so wholesome and like you just I don't know, it's happy. It's a happy thing.
Nice.
So I mean, and I started a new book. That's pretty much what I did.
Sounds great.
You starting a new book is always a good thing because it means more for us. So
yeah,
yay.
And that's
I like to start a new book because the first
book.
part is easy. And then we know when I get to about 20,000 words, I'm going to be like, what do I do now?
Yes.
Relatable.
Yeah, the beginnings, you know what, it's always interesting to me. I think everybody universally hates the middle. Like if I ever met somebody who enjoyed writing the middle, that person's a sociopath and I would run away. But like
wait, this is a universal thing that you think everyone hates writing the middle? I've never heard that.
I have never met anybody who says I enjoy writing the middle.
Oh.
I don't enjoy writing the middle more than the beginning or the end, but I don't like it less.
All right, so we have our
Put a little
sociopath.
part in there that says, and stuff happens.
And stuff happens.
Yeah.
And then they
But I
get
do that at the
along.
beginning and the end too.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. That's an interesting.
No, I find that really, I love it. Per usual, Roan is the exception that proves the rule. But yeah,
But
no, I love that.
I feel
But
like there's
most
probably lots.
folks, I'll put it this way, most folks do not enjoy writing the middle.
Okay.
Most writers I've ever talked to have fallen into the camps of either I love writing the beginning of the book because it's when it's most fresh, it's when it's most fun, or I love writing the end of the book because I know all my characters and I've lived with them and I just can't wait to give them their HEA and all of that stuff. Where do you guys fall?
I love writing the breakup. I love writing the really
You would.
the conflict part where but you know, it's a little bit of what Roan was talking about. It gives me that chance to be emotional when I think so many times we as women can't because we're holding everything else together. So we find this time that we can kind of put all of all of that stuff we have to hold back into it. And of course, that's why I read romance novels in the first place, was to have that. So it makes sense that I like to write that.
All right. How about you guys? Are you beginners or enders? Or middlers? Everything equal?
I think I might be in Roan's camp in this one, because I don't have, it's not that I hate the middle or the beginning or the end. It's all pretty much the same. For me, it's probably I get like nervous about whether I've dropped the ball in the middle of the book after I've done it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like when I'm going reading it through, I'm like, oh, I haven't tied this through. I haven't brought this thread through right or something, you know?
Totally.
Does anybody here write non-linearly? Like, do you write the beginning first? I mean, the end first, and then
I
I
don't
know
understand those
people who do that, and I don't understand that magic. I
don't
wish I had
understand.
it. And the person that I know that does that, they write suspense. I don't even understand how you could do that. I mean, they plot before, so maybe that's how they do it. But I'm like, wow.
Well, obviously they know who the killer is, because sometimes I don't. And so I have to write until the killer goes like, hey, I got a knife.
I'm pecking here. I like the beginnings a lot. I hate writing the ends. I shouldn't say hate, but I dislike writing the ends. And the end is the only time, like once I'm in like the last 3 chapters, I will pop through. Like, and I will write in different sections at the same time, but that's the only time. Otherwise, I have to go linear.
Yeah, I also write linearly, although I'm trying with the book that I just started to give myself a little bit more grace to leave myself notes like, finish this scene if I don't know how a scene ends, because I'm trying to kind of fast draft it. But I just like different things about all the pieces. Like I love the beginning. Like the first line is the most fun that I ever have, because it's like, who knows what it's going to be? Your fingers are just going to type something. I don't know. It's so cool. And it's like, there's so much potential, and like anything can happen. You haven't eliminated your possibilities yet. So it's really fun and free. And then I love the middle, because the middle is like where the middle is the payoff for me of the intimacy. It's like you're developing all these things where the characters get to have fun together and they're enjoying learning about each other. And then I love the end, because in the end, you've sort of like written yourself to a point where logically you only have a few options that are going to make sense. And then so there's like less that you're choosing from, and you get to tie everything up. And I enjoy that. But yeah, I just like different things about the different pieces, I guess.
For me, the scene that I'm always like, okay, write more here, is the sex scene.
Yeah.
That's the only time I will go and like do something else, is when I'm in the and I just can't write anymore. And so I need to go write some dialogue where people are talking, and I'm not worried about body parts.
Amazing.
Well,
let's us worry about
like 3 arms and 6 legs, and you're like, I have
That
fucked up
happens
somewhere.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, let's move on. Clearly, we've established ourselves as total experts in everything. So let's see if we can help some people. So our letter today is from Reddit. Is it an "Am I the Asshole"? I can't tell. Let's see.
No, it was from the relationships and dating section.
Great. All right. So my 27 female husband, 31 male, posted photos of me on Reddit.
Stop right there.
Using a
please, if you are listening on podcast, just go pop over to the YouTube and watch the video of everyone's face right there.
Look at Lexi's face is like she's ready to like cut someone. I can just see it in her face.
And suddenly I had a knife.
Ooh, okay. Sorry, everyone.
Okay. My 27 female husband, 23 or 31 male, posted photos of me on Reddit using a throwaway for obvious reasons. A few years ago, when we were in the honeymoon phase of our relationship, we used to take photos and videos of us nude. They weren't to share with anyone, just a fun thing to do. That was like 5 years ago, and I genuinely forgot about them. Last week, I found one of those old pics on a certain bikini subreddit. I freaked out. My first thought was that someone hacked me or something. I confronted my husband and he said he posted a few photos, both nude and half nude, to various subs. He didn't think it was a big deal and that they were a few years old, so it's not like anyone would recognize me from them. I know he took some of them down, but I'm not sure if all. I don't know what to think. I just feel so betrayed.
Throw the whole man out.
Set him on fire. Yes.
Throw him on. He's
Think
gone.
about the divorce attorney she's about to hire.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he can take them down, but they're still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am gobsmacked.
Yeah.
And partly
If
I
she
just feel
had
like
said her
that's
ex or something, I'd be like, okay, this is like a revenge thing. But they're
Right.
still married.
Does he know that? I mean, she like that's illegal for him.
Right.
to
Yeah.
post those of
Yeah.
her. It's literally illegal
Yeah.
and sue him and have him brought in.
Yeah.
Also, did she get like a face transplant or something? Why would something being a few years old as an adult mean that you were unrecognizable?
Yeah,
So
because
I'm
it's
sure
only
that's the
been
statement about her. She's probably gained a little weight, or I'm sure that's something.
Changed her hair color or whatever, but
Yeah.
still.
it's also
Mhm.
it's been 5 years and she's 27.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's been 20 years, so 20 years and 6 babies since. Yeah, things are a little bit different then, but yeah, this is just crazy to me.
I am just flabbergasted. Just,
Yeah.
So obviously, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, most of us are like, set the house on fire with him inside of it. Only probably not seriously. Air quotes. You don't have to come for me. I'm not
Metaphorically.
advocating the murder.
My goodness.
But I think this, I saw this letter, and what kind of also pulled me out into this are people's expectations on what they own of a person, or of a person's likeness, or of a person's image once they are in a relationship or marriage with somebody. And I think that was kind of interesting on this, because he obviously says, you're my wife, I took these pictures, therefore you willingly took the photos and they're mine, so they're like a gift. I could do what I want with them. But stuff like this happens, and it's not just with getting posted on the internet. It's sharing with buddies, it's doing this, it's doing that, all of those things that happen. And while most of the stories I end up hearing on stuff like this are the dudes doing it, girlfriends and wives and women as well. And so that's always really interesting to me, in where do you create that boundary, and why do some people think it just doesn't exist?
Yeah, I kind of don't even know how to where to start here. So I'm trying to, because I agree with you, Avery, that was the first thing that struck me, was like, wow, this really shows this husband's state of mind in terms of like what he believes is acceptable. Because not no one, but like, this doesn't seem like someone who was like, this is going to really piss off my wife, I'm going to do it to torment her, given his sort of like slack-jawed response of not understanding why there was a problem. And so what I find myself imagining is like, this has to be a man who, like, this can't be the only way in which he doesn't respect her autonomy or her independence and control over her own self and image. So I'm assuming that there are like other things that he does that might fall into this same category. Because like, in terms of practical advice, I mean, for me, this is like such a deal breaker that I would be out the door. But also I'm like, if they've been together for this long, there must be other things that he's done that kind of make her go like, I'm not just leaving, because there would have been other ones. So then how do you go about like communicating to someone who doesn't understand this is super wrong and super upsetting? Because that's the only way you could like move past it, right? Is if you actually change this piece of that person. Which
you move past it though?
I couldn't personally. My assumption is that this woman has been with this man through other things that he's done that I also would never accept in a relationship. So I'm taking my myself out of the perspective.
She's
I
like,
mean, someone posted a bikini picture of me. I mean, first of all, they don't exist because I've never worn them in my life. But someone posted a picture, like a naked picture of me on the internet. If it was a stranger, I would like sue them and do all the things and bring the pain. But if it was like my partner, I mean, there's no way that I would ever be with a person who did that. So I can't even really conceive of this. But I'm assuming that she must have, there must be other things that he does that she can kind of look past, because I don't think this just comes out of nowhere.
It sounds like you think it sounds like a piece of a pattern rather than just a one-off thing.
Yeah, I do.
it would be pretty extreme not to be. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question then. Would you guys be okay if it was the same pictures but cropped so you can't see her
That's
head?
what I was wondering, because by the language it sounds like he didn't even hide her face or like cut her off at the chin or something like that. That I can't.
It's still your body, and it's
Yeah.
still something that I just think in this particular case, yet again, it shows men do not understand what it means to be a woman and what it means to be vulnerable, because they have never felt it themselves. It's like the guys who don't understand how scary it is to walk alone at night because they're not scared. They don't understand what it means to have in a lot of ways, our bodies are commodities.
Mhm.
And, we get picked on and pulled apart for every little thing. We're too skinny, we're too big, they don't understand that because they've never had to deal with that. They can be a person without being a body. So I don't know that he is educable.
Well, and also my question is, what do you get out of this? Right? So is he posting this to be like, you could
Reddit is a very
it is
interesting subculture. I don't know the bikini subreddit, but I can only imagine the comments that are there. So this is like,
hold on.
he said he did it for a
because I have the
throwaway
Reddit
account.
app on my phone. So you guys keep talking.
Okay.
And I'm gonna look it up while we talk.
So he did it in a throwaway account, which I guess just doing it on a throwaway account, he knew that this was something he shouldn't be doing.
Oh, I didn't get that. I got that she was using a throwaway account.
Was she using a throwaway account?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then anyway, but like, just that's like, I'm doing it for the gram kind of thing. Like I'm doing it for the upvotes, putting pictures of my new wife. She said there were pictures from their honeymoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he took pictures from their honeymoon and put them on Reddit. What the actual?
All right, this is totally gonna mess up my my Reddit thing, but okay, here are your bikini options. Bikini bottom Twitter, which makes me laugh. Bikini Mo, Bikini Bodhi, Bikini TikToks, Bikini Celebs. So that's what pops up. So there could be a million, and quite frankly, the SpongeBob ones is the most pure. I'm just gonna go without even looking at the other ones, but yeah,
Hilarious.
so
I actually feel just very like, is there even I'm like, what's the point in her asking this? Because like, I don't know.
She's asking if she has a right to be upset.
Yes.
It's basically.
Yeah.
and yes, she does.
Because he's told her it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
He told her if it was me, I'd be proud. If it was me, I'd be so proud of how good I looked. I mean, he's told her all of these things. She has to ask to see if she really has autonomy over her own body and her own image.
Yeah. Oh,
she said he took some of them down, but she's not sure if he took all of them down.
Yeah, well, and part of it too is, everybody has different deal breakers within their relationship. So I think what she's really asking is it okay for me to make this my deal breaker? Which I would say definitely yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's not just about the pictures, right?
No.
If it was just about the pictures, that would be one thing, but it is about the intent and the disregard in posting the pictures. Is he posting them to say, oh my God, look what a hot babe that I pulled? Is he posting them just to say, oh yeah, I'm going to be part of this group that does this? Is he posting them because he just doesn't think about it at all? you know. Either way, she, who is his wife, who you would think he cared about, did not factor into the thought at all of the process. And that to me is what, you know, you always say that cheating is a symptom, not a whatever.
Yeah.
You know, this is a symptom of something bigger, which again
Yeah.
goes to Roan's pattern.
Just the fact that he did this right after their honeymoon. Like, that's supposed to be the time when you're like the most
Together.
connected, the most together, the most protective or whatever. And he's like, yo, look at what I, you know, look, I can't wrap my head around it. This is so.
All right. So what would your 3-point plan for her be?
Pack.
Okay.
Move.
I think that's legit.
Pack, move, file. There you go. 3-point plan.
I changed that a little bit. I might go change the locks.
Yeah.
You know, why do you have to lose your living space?
I wonder if they have children. Like, what? I don't even.
There are also Reddits about places where you can put bodies. I know there are.
Yeah. So we've heard.
To me, the larger question that this brings up for me is like, not just deal breakers in terms of behavior, but deal breakers in terms of like how much can you be misunderstood and still have intimacy in other ways. And I think that this happens sometimes with like, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, maybe you feel like you're a woman and your husband just cannot understand what it is to be a woman, or vice versa. Maybe you are a person of color in a relationship with a white person and you're like, this person can just never understand what it is to be like. Maybe you are like, fill in the blank ad nauseum, like religious differences, political differences, social differences, different values. Like for people's lines are really different, but like, what if your relationship, as I assume this one has to be if they haven't been divorced already, like what if your relationship has great things, but there's this one category in which you feel so deeply unseen, unrespected, and like ununderstood? How do you make that work? Like, how do you take this one category where you are like, when I tell people that you do this thing, they think I should murder you. So how do we get over this, right? Like that to me is really interesting, because I think that I haven't had the experience of dating someone who had even one category that was so different from me that I was, well, I did, my first boyfriend, and we broke up obviously. But like, I think that that's different people. Like I know Avery, you talk a lot about how you and your husband like have really different opinions on certain things, but like, clearly there are other parts of your relationship that work for you. And so to me, this is just something that like, it could be any other difference, but like, this is from the point of view of someone who just feels very, very deeply misunderstood. And like, there is a huge gap. And to me, that's like intimacy destroying and trust destroying, this particular one. And I just think it's like such a limit case, but clearly there are thriving relationships, even where there is like one thing about which you do not agree or you don't understand each other. And like, is that different? Where are the boundaries there, I guess?
Well,
she definitely still has some trust issues here too. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh my God. How would you not have trust issues after?
I mean, she's saying, I don't know if he took them all down, because whatever conversation she had with him, he's still saying, he's like, okay, fine, I'll take them down, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Which
that response would make me feel like, did he really take them down? Did he take all of them down except for the ones that got a lot of likes? Did he, you know what I mean? Like he's not taking this seriously. And she's like, I still feel betrayed. I don't know what to think. So that just tells me that he did not respect her hurt, her pain at all.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you like Roan said, like, if that's the only thing, say that's the only thing in their whole relationship that's a bump in the road, like how do you balance that out? How do you get past it?
Okay, so this is really weird, but I have a total romance tie-in here.
Okay.
So I had never read any of the Bridgerton books. I realize this seems like a really weird transition, but I promise I'm gonna bring us around. Okay, so I had never read any of the Bridgerton books. I watched season 1, liked it, loved season 2, right? It's a very divisive season. Some people love it, some people hate it. Well, I'm in Barnes and Noble and I had resisted reading the books because my TBR is, quite frankly, like everyone else's, completely out of control. And the school bus
Kids
is
are
here,
home.
so my dogs are going insane. So I apologize. So I had resisted, but I was in Barnes and Noble and they had them in a box set, and I have no impulse control when it comes to box sets. So I finally broke down and bought all of the stupid Bridgerton books, right? And I'm reading them and I'm like, this is rapey as fuck, right? I was completely and utterly shocked. Like, there's a hero who says to the heroine, basically, you cannot deny me my conjugal rights. And I'm like sitting there going, this is a hero. This is the dude that we like. What the fuck? Right? And then I am one of the other books. The hero is very upset with the heroine and he grabs her arm, and you're in his head during this scene. He grabs her arm and he's thinking about the fact that he's probably bruising her, and he's not exactly happy about that, but he kind of is, because he is that pissed off at her. And I am just like, what the fuckity fuck? And then you have the whole, like, if you've watched the first season or the book, no surprise here, spoilers ahead if you haven't, but you've got the heroine who basically gets the hero drunk and has sex with him when he is not able to consent, right? So I flipped through and I'm like, these books have got to be, when were these books written? I'm like, I have to go look. They were written in the early 2000s. Right. And I was surprised because it really kind of reminded me a lot of the romance books that I would read, especially the historicals in the 80s and the early 90s. Right.
Sky O'Malley.
Yes. Yes. So to bring us back to what we're talking about, I think that especially as cis hetero women who are socialized as women in the United States within the patriarchy and everything else, to bring out the big words, you've got expectations and what you are expected to be able to put up with, and it's never gonna always go your way, right? Which is grown-up parts. But I think, especially, like, I think back to what it was probably like when my mom got married, you know, or let alone as early as the Regency when we were property, but all of that has never factored in, right? So when you get to relationships where it is 95% good and 5% you're like, what the fuck? You've got that balance that I think women, wives make, you know, speaking from the perspective of a wife, I think that there are balances and considerations that wives make that I don't know that husbands do, quite frankly. And so, you know, that's kind of what it comes down to. So when I read this letter from Reddit, what I hear is that person not sure where this fits in that. Is that the 5% that I just need to figure out how to deal with? Or does this crash on over to the 6% so I can say, fuck you, right? And that is so concerning to me. And I think of myself as super independent and super feminist and things like that. And I look at my daughter who's 19 and quite frankly should scare the shit out of everybody. I love her to death. But what she expects out of a relationship and what she's willing to call out, I'm like, I can't even imagine, having grown up in the 80s and the early 90s. I'm like, I can't even imagine having done that. And then I think to my mom and I'm like, oh God, they were still beating their wives with impunity at this point in time. Right. So I think we are all still making that transition. But I think the kids, even though this woman is 27, I think the kids are making changes, incremental changes that women of my generation still have not met. So
I hope so.
Yeah. So that is my bringing it around,
because he was emotionally unavailable, and I
Who'd you
was
say?
like,
all right,
my
wait, start
daughter-
from the beginning again.
my 23-year-old, well, she has a long line of partners who she has broken up with for various reasons, but her latest was he was emotionally unavailable, and he was, and she recognized it at 23, and I was very proud of her.
Wow.
Aren't you proud of that? Yeah, same thing. I look at some stuff that my daughter will say and I will be like, wow, yes, you're completely right. And I'm sure she looks at me and goes, duh, mom. Like I look at my mother and I'm like, hello. So yeah, baby steps. Maybe, hopefully. But this chick needs to burn him. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering,
Burn
I'm thinking
him,
about this
stab it,
conversation
yeah.
that they must have had, and I wonder if it was one of those, oh,
Mhm.
babe, you know, well, it's not a big deal, or if he was just like pissed that she confronted him about it, because those are two different responses.
Sure.
Like if it's a oh babe, I didn't mean anything, I'll take it down kind of thing, then I could see her being like, well, he's a really good guy and he's great with this and he, you know, whatever. But if it was a pissed response, like, why are you being such a bitch about it or whatever, that's a whole different thing. So I wish we had a little bit more information about what that conversation went like. Because like you said, Avery, if it's something where obviously this is like, for me, it would be like, well, dude, see ya. But if this is someone who's like, oh, I can look past it, if he understands what he did and if he took them all down and if this and if that, because everything else is so great. But if his response is, oh, you're being such a bitch about it, da, 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 then that's a whole different, you know,
Yeah.
that's a different track. So I wish we had a little bit more information, but yeah,
Well,
you're
I
absolutely
think
right,
it's-
Avery.
It's the difference between ignorance and assholery, right?
Yeah.
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 Ignorance is truly not understanding or knowing something. It is like, for example, early on when I was with my husband, he used to give me crap every time we parked in a parking garage, and I parked exactly by the door, right? I was like, I would drive around extra time just to find a spot that was right by the door, right by that stairwell, right by that spot. And he is like, it's not going to kill you to walk. And that was his only frame of reference as a 6'3" dude, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm like, no, this is a safety issue. So he has never given me shit about that since then. But, you know, so that is ignorance to me. Assholery is knowing it and still doing it. I am honestly curious if the dude looks at the photos and maybe they're like, her face is hidden or she can't see. So he's like, honestly, in ignorance, thought it wouldn't be a big deal because you couldn't tell who she was.
I wonder if he went on Am I the Asshole and
That
said, Am I
doesn't
the
make it
asshole because
up.
I put my wife's pictures on?
Yes.
So
Oh
good.
my God.
To see if we can find that, because
Well, you know, Avery, what you said also really makes me think, like, I think that's a great example about your husband. And it makes me wonder, like, when we choose, like, I understand that thinking and acting are different, but to me, thinking precedes acting, or at least it should if anyone else is involved. And I think that to me, there is an assholeism to assuming that you know why someone is doing something and then teasing them about it instead of asking, or in posting a picture that you think is totally fine of someone else without asking. And I feel like the piece that is so often missing to me in so many of these questions of am I the asshole is like, people are saying, am I the asshole? And like, should I apologize now? And then the responses are like, you are an asshole and you should have asked in the beginning. And I know it's hard to say, like, ask if you don't know that a thing is a thing, but I don't think it's unreasonable to be like, before you literally post a picture of another person's naked body, you should understand that you should ask. I think you should do that even before you post a picture of anything about someone or someone's home or someone's, you know, home address, or like, those are all things that should be asked. And I think that the like the expectations are just so low that it's like, it's not actually about determining, is what you did, are you an asshole or are you not an asshole? Like, you are an asshole even before you did it for not asking. And like, good God, if you don't know something and you think, you assume something's fine, maybe that should be the thing, like that should be the indication to ask. Because the things that you are like, I can't see any problem with this, that should be a red flag, because you are limited by always your own experience, your own feelings. And if something that you're doing and you're like, I can't see anything wrong with this, and it involves another person, you have to be like, well, they're a separate person with a separate brain and they might be able to see something wrong with this. So instead of like doing the thing and then being told I'm an asshole and then apologizing and changing my behavior, which is good, I could just ask in the first place and avoid like causing the harm to that person that comes from like, we're all ignorant, you know, like we all have immense ignorances about what it's like to live other people's experiences and lives.
Mhm.
And I fundamentally think that like step one should always just be asking, and that all of these people are like on step 3, you know, like the am I the asshole is always after doing a behavior that you could have just asked about. Is this
Yeah.
so hard?
I mean, for some, in a situation like this, it makes me feel like he didn't ask because he knew what the answer would be.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know, like, hey babe, can I put these nude photos of you online? He knows she's gonna say no. Like he's married to this
asking
woman.
for
He knows this
forgiveness,
woman.
that whole play, I'd rather, you know, ask for forgiveness than
Than
ask for
permission.
permission.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not the route to go, my man. Sometimes
No.
it's not the route to go.
No.
But that's a
No,
really
and
good
it's
point,
weird 'cause,
Roan.
like-
I like that,
Well,
you know,
And I just,
take
it's
the
something that I
time.
try. Just take the time. And there are some things where you're going to get the response that's like, no, it's fine. Like the other day, my girlfriend's mom's very sweetly texted me to be like, I have these things that I'm thinking of getting rid of unless you might want them. Because she knows I bake, and they were like baking things. And I was like, yes, I would love, in my head, I was like, yes, I would love them. But before I wrote back, I just like asked my girlfriend, hey, is it cool if I take your mom up on this really generous offer? Because I couldn't think of any reason why it wouldn't be cool, but also she's not my mom. And so,
Right.
and my girlfriend was like, yeah, no problem. That's why did you even ask? And I was like, I don't know, you just never know what people's shit is.
Yeah.
And so in that case, it was like I didn't need to ask. But I feel like even when you don't need to ask, like what Timmy now knows about me is she will never do something with regard to my family without me being in the loop. And then she can go ahead and feel confident that she doesn't have to worry that I'm going to like have these relationships with her parents that like might be doing damage, but I don't know because I don't ask. So I feel like it's never a bad thing to ask. No one's ever going to be like, how dare you ask me if I'm okay with that? Get out of my sight, you know? So much. You could just, ugh.
Actually, I've had that happen, but yeah, generally, yes.
Generally,
Okay, fair.
oh my goodness.
Hey,
Whew. Y'all,
that's a letter.
that, you know what? It's a small letter. It was something that we all initially agreed on, but there is a lot behind it. So yeah. Whew, good
It's probably one of the shortest ones we've had with one of the most loaded ones that we've seen.
Yeah,
with so few
totally.
words.
yeah.
But what we really want, guys, is to hear from you. Like we love Reddit, we love Slate, we love all of those columns, but we really want to hear from you guys. So please send us your letters. You can submit them on our anonymous form at dearromancewriter.com. You can slide into our DMs. You can send a carrier pigeon, Telegram, Western Union, whatever you want to do. We want to hear from you because we want to help you with your issues and pretend we're experts on all the things. So please reach out to us. But that was a doozy.
That was a doozy. For sure.
So we were chatting earlier about being authors and everything, and I think it's good because our chat topic this week is about the challenges of publishing and the unwritten rules of being a romance author. What do you think some of those are, you guys?
Ugh.
Anyone have any unwritten rules?
You will
Or
be
written
asked
ones?
5 million times if you do everything in your books, and they are not talking about the murders. I always want to respond with, why, yes, I have blown up many people, but you will have to deal with that particular question, and you need to get a pat response, and you need to have a game face for when they ask you things that are going to be a little shocking, because that's part of the job.
Yeah. Or they want
I
to
am
tell
so-
you all about theirs.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's always a little
yeah.
awkward as well.
Oh, yeah.
About
Yeah.
sex? Is that
Yes. Yeah, I write some lifestyle and kink stuff, and whew, I know a lot about some people that I did not know.
so shocking to me?
You haven't gotten any
Yeah.
of that wrong?
I have never been asked by anyone if I do the sex things that are in my book. And I think if someone did ask me, I would be like, that is such an inappropriate question. I can't believe you just felt comfortable asking me that. What's wrong with people?
There must be something about me because I get it all the time.
I am shocked on your behalf, honestly.
My
That's
books
so
are like
interesting.
candy coated fluff buckets compared to yours, and they when it comes to the sex stuff, and still yeah completely. One of the
Silly.
interesting things, okay, so unwritten rules of being a romance author, I think when I started, it was a very strongly supported unwritten rule of being a romance author that you didn't talk about anything controversial. You didn't talk politics. You didn't talk about other people's
yeah, I remember
books.
that.
You just basically sat there and got your head patted. This was the advice that I think I got so
got that too.
much as an
And I was like,
author,
yeah,
and
how
I
you
think
met me?
that has definitely changed.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. And especially like if you see some of the like I will say just about anything social media wise, I don't have a problem with expressing my opinions, but I will tell you some of the publishing threads that have been out there that have been talking about you know, workloads and money and all of those things, and those are the ones that to me make me very nervous about going, because I do think that that's one of the unwritten rules, is still not talking about your contracts, not talking about money, not talking about how many books you've got coming. And
That's
some
what
of
it
it's
should be.
some of it's contractual, but some of it is just
They can't make
the
you
way
not
they
talk
think
about
it
your
should
money.
be. Right.
I mean,
It's so taboo. It's considered taboo still,
Yeah.
I think, to talk
but they
about
want
this.
it. I would say, as a person who does both self and traditional publishing, I mean, that's the way they want it. Of course, they want it that way, because then they can make you feel like, oh, look, I'm giving you the world, when they actually gave the world to that other person, usually a guy who doesn't sell half of what you do.
Right.
And they're going to because he's going to ask for it, and they want us to not ask for it.
Right.
Yeah. The publishing paid me hashtag was very eye-opening.
Oh, that hashtag was awesome. That was really interesting. And there was one that I saw the other day that was talking about advances and things like that. And I'm like, I've gotten books with advances. I still get books that don't have advances that are traditional. And I'm like, to me, you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of that. Like the ones that I want the most advance from are the ones that I don't expect them to support, but if they do, I'm going to be really pleasantly surprised. And the ones that I'm like, I'm okay with getting a low advance or no advance, are the ones that I'm like, I know I will still make my money, because I got a mortgage to pay and I like to eat. So yeah, those are important.
And see, I'm going to be honest, I would never do a New York book without an advance, and it has to be a certain number, because I know what I can make if I self-publish that book. So they have to make it meaningful for me in order to basically give that income and that control up.
How about you guys?
Back to Avery's point about being controversial. That was the thing I heard so much when I first started, like in 2013, 2014. And even recently, I have a couple of friends who've been around a little longer than me who are like, oh, I can't believe that you talked about that. I'm like, at first, my readers know just from reading my stuff that I don't shy away from from topics. If they follow me on social media, they know that I don't shy away from topics. And if they have a problem with that, then there are other authors out there that they can read. Whenever I talked to a publisher, when I was looking at publishers to work with, I was like, if they say anything about my social media, that's kind of a deal breaker for me, because I'm not going to change my personality or my way of like contributing to the discussion for a book contract. So if that's a deal breaker for them, then that's just, something I'll have to live with, because it's part of who I am. I'm not going to not talk about social issues. So yeah, that always sort of rubbed me the wrong way, that people were like, oh no, you have to pretend that things in the world aren't happening in order to sell your books or be, whatever. If you're not comfortable talking about stuff, that's fine. That's that's great. But if you're talking about it on your private profile, but not, that's fine. But like, don't tell other people not to do it. And that really rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, this whole chat topic is interesting to me, because I think like when I wrote my first book and published it, I didn't know a single author. Like I didn't know anyone in Romancelandia. I didn't know anyone. So I actually was not aware of any, like, of course I know now that these things are talked about, but like, I didn't go into it thinking like no one gave me that advice, because no one gave me any advice because I just didn't know anybody. And I think that watching it, like as often happens to me, there probably are unspoken rules, but I'm just not paying attention to them, because I feel like what happens over and over is the way I learn about an unspoken rule is all the people being like, that's stupid, maybe just because of who I follow. So like the way I would learn like it's not considered proper to talk about how much money you make is from a bunch of people sharing how much money they made and being like, why do we keep letting them tell us that we shouldn't talk about how much money we make? So I feel like these are all things that I know now are things, but they're just not real. Like just none of them are real. Anytime there's like, what are some of the rules? I'm like, well, there aren't any actually. Like to follow a rule is to capitulate to the idea that it exists, and I don't sometimes.
Can I also point out that when we talk about money, we should talk about it amongst ourselves. We do not need to talk about that. Like nobody needs to send out a newsletter mayhap to a bunch of readers explaining how you're a multimillionaire, and like you don't need to do that. You need to talk to them about your books. You don't need to, dunk on people. We should talk about it amongst ourselves in our private forums as information that will help other authors.
Yeah, it's
it
business
should not be like, ooh, look at how much
Yeah.
Well, there was a conversation a couple of years ago, I think right before lockdown, maybe a few months before that, about somebody, I can't remember the author, I wouldn't say their name anyway, but they were like, I'm building my dream home, readers help me make this happen. And there was a debate about whether or not, because it was like they were going through the process of like, here's the plot of land that we bought, and here's the foundation for the house, and here are the walls going up. And it was very much like a step-by-step thing. And some people were like, oh my gosh, you're just flaunting how much you've made and readers are going to hate you for that. And other people were like, this is a culmination of a lifelong dream, and it's really, really cool that you're sharing it with them. And I was like, which side of the aisle people were on. It was very, very interesting to me. I thought it was really neat that she was sharing this process, because she was like, here's this beautiful piece of land. And, oh my gosh, I never thought I'd be able to do this. It wasn't like, look how much money I have and I'm building a luxury home. It was just like, you know what I mean? And that's how I took it. But there were other people who were like really on her case about it and like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Readers are, and I was like, wow. And it was a really hot debate for about a week.
You know what I wonder on things like that though too? I wonder how much of that regional cultural acceptance also factors into that. Like me being from the Midwest, you even talking about that, I was so uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable.
Why?
Because you just don't do that. Right. So it is the I don't know. So I wonder, and here's the thing. So I wonder how much like that, because you guys are both born and bred East Coasters, yes? Zio and Roan?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
You are, you're a transplant, right?
I was born in Baltimore, but I grew up in Michigan.
Yeah. So this, you don't count. You count for better things than
wait, Lexi, where were you born?
I was born here in Texas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is, I do think that when it comes to certain things, I wonder how much that factors into it, like things that are regionally acceptable.
Generational too.
And generational that comes into it. And then I think there is also, I think there's a class thing that comes into it as well. And I find that interesting. I think all of those things factor into it. Like me, myself, growing up very poor and coming out, it makes me feel weird just because like you spent the entire time you were growing up trying to make it appear as you were exactly like everybody else that you were around, right?
I do too.
And that probably could just be a me thing. Wait, Lexi, you said you as well?
Yeah, it's absolutely. I grew up very,
and maybe
very
that's a more universal poor kid thing, but yeah. So And then the people that I have known who've grown up more wealthy are more likely to just be like, we don't talk about money. So it's just sort of the people in the middle that are really comfortable talking about money. Everybody, the rest of us are like, oh my God. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's another interesting thing is what becomes talking about something because it brings you joy and you want to share that joy, and what becomes talking about something because you sort of want to say, ooh, look what I did. And I think that comes down to but you can't control other people's reaction to it. Like some people will become offended or think it's braggy when an author says, hey, I hit the USA Today, or I hit the New York Times, or whatever.
Just thinking
and they're
that.
like,
yeah,
boy, brag some more. And
God, yo.
Yeah. And that's not something you can control, is what other people's reaction to your happy news. And then you have the people that are like, oh, please share when you have something happy, because I want to celebrate with you. And sometimes they mean it, sometimes they don't. So, it's all that weirdness.
Yeah.
I will say, I think that one of the unwritten rules are, for the most part, not to talk shit about the genre or other romance authors. And to me, that sort of comes into the categories of either professional behavior, which I can see, but I think there is a lot of gatekeeping that comes into there too, because I think some people will see a calling out of something that needs to be called out and say, well, you're being unprofessional. And those are completely different things to me. But I definitely think there is an unwritten rule about talking when it is proper to talk about your genre or your fellow authors.
I don't
even their
understand
books.
what people get out of bashing a book that someone else loved. And I'm not talking about because it was problematic, because it was that's a different story. Talking about that is a very different thing. But calling something that a great many people adore trash, and like making it part of your brand to just trash something. And this is me talking specifically about something like 50 Shades. Like, why? If you didn't enjoy it, you didn't enjoy it. That's fine. You don't have to tell everybody how much you didn't like something.
Or everybody who loved that book is an idiot. You see that too, and you're like, really? Because a lot of those readers are reading your stuff.
Exactly. I do not get that at all.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
I think that's one of those things, though, figuring out where that line is, though. It takes a while to figure out where that is, I think.
Yeah, I also think social media, those kinds of things, I also don't really understand what people are, I think it's unkind often. But I feel like when I see people doing it, the sense that I get is that they think that they have to specify that for you to understand who they are as a person. And so often I'm like, I think that you just need to not care so much that every single stranger on the internet knows who you are as a person. Because if that would just go away, then you wouldn't have to do things like, here's my hot take, and then your hot take is the same as 1,000 others, and it's very basic and silly. Or you don't have to shit on something just to be like, hey, I'm not like other people who like this genre because I don't like this thing. Wouldn't the world just be so much a better place if people had internal senses of self and self-esteem? I think it would help so much.
I was just thinking along those lines when people are like, or you see those articles or sometimes interviews with people who are like, I wrote a romance. It's not like other romances. It's not it's not like 50 Shades. It's not like whatever. It's like, do you need that comment? Did you really need to?
Yeah. You don't have to cut somebody else down to make yourself bigger.
Yeah.
But when we were talking about, you don't want to trash other authors, I will say, and you should never do that, but we all turn into when they vaguely trash each other and you don't know who the other person is, we all turn into detectives,
super sleuths,
social media detectives who will spend 5 hours trying to figure out what that person said and who it meant.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, I hate subtweets. Oh my God. Don't make
Some
me feel
tweets are
low.
frustrating, especially when they're about something that's harmful and problematic. Like if someone's being harmful and problematic, name and shame. Like I have no problem name and shaming bigots. If you're just going to vague tweet them, then that doesn't help me figure out if I'm following them, if they're following me, if it's somebody that I've endorsed, if it's somebody
Well,
that I've
it's so
retweeted. Like
Otherwise, we go straight to the same two
performative.
people. we think it's the same two people who.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it might be the same two people, but
Mhm.
oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Lexi, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me. It was
Lexi does
fun.
not approve of posting naked pictures of your wife from your honeymoon
No.
without
Or your
her
husband.
permission. Yes.
Yes, or your husband. Just don't do it.
Yeah, no.
Or anyone.
Of anyone.
Post
Yeah.
Don't do
pics of your dog sleeping.
Yeah. Oh my God, your dog is passed out cold.
I
He looks
know.
like he's one of
And
the pillows.
it's gonna be a like find the dog. She's it's hidden back there. Of course, there are paintings of her all over the place. She's my youngest daughter's favorite subject.
Oh, that's so cool.
All right, Lexi, tell everybody again where they can find you and what book they need to pick up.
The easiest place to find me is lexiblake.net. That's where everything is. You can find all my socials there, all my information. My latest book is The Man from Sanctum, and then I have a book coming out in June called Delighted.
Ooh.
Yay.
It's my happiest book ever. No one gets shot.
What?
Wow. You might want to revise that.
No one gets shot. No one gets shot.
No one gets shot. All right. Well, we loved
Nice.
having you. And listeners,
much.
thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. Please do send in your letters. We've
Please.
got an anonymous form on the website, dearromancewriter.com. You can email us at advice@dearromancewriter.com. I got that. We're on social media. You can send those through DMs. We want to hear from you so that we can give you some questionable advice from this trio of happily ever after enthusiasts. Thank you guys so much for listening and spending some time with us today. Bye, y'all.
See you next week.
Thank you so much for subscribing to Dear Romance Writer. Remember to keep sending in those letters at dearromancewriter.com. We can't wait to tell you what to do. Dear Romance Writer is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love, frolic.media/podcasts.